Yes, welcome everybody. Yeah, I will be talking today not so much technical, but more about the user experience, about how we work. I work for a nonprofit called the Clean Clothes campaign that works in the garment industry, and we rely quite heavily on Plone, and we had a very tough year this year, as everybody did, but for garment workers it was specifically tough. So the Clean Clothes campaign, what is it? Well, it is an organization that consists of a worldwide network of other organizations. The headquarters is in Amsterdam. It There are about it's a global network of trade unions, of women's rights organizations, labor rights organizations, other groups, and we've been we concentrate on a lot of things, but in the global garment sector, we have been at this for a very long time. We've been existing for 30 years now, 31 to be precise. And our work is in the garment footwear sector, and that is a sector that has a lot of issues. Um, the supply chains are very unclear. Um, there is not a lot known about it that is beginning to improve, but still, and it is known, it is infamous for paying really low wages. So what do? We campaign, we lobby, and we take also direct actions. And we've been heavy users of Plone for a very long time as well. Currently, this is what our setup looks like, more or less. Our main website uses Castle, which is a flavor of Plone, which I will tell a little bit more about. That is for our public-facing website. Then we also run an intranet, and we're using Quave, which is a social internet, and we use that for the network-wide communications. As I said, there are 300 organizations on it, and we produce a lot of documents internally. And to keep track of that, and also to keep them safe, because we work in a high-risk environment, we get a lot of pushback from governments, from corporations, and we need a very extensive security model. And Quave helps us do that. And we also use a lot of campaign mini sites, and we tend to base them on Gatsby, some of them with the Gatsby Plone connector, some just plain Gatsby sites. We also have a few other Plone, just plain vanilla Plone sites, but the Castle and the Quave ones are the main ones that helped us during this pandemic. A little more about the garment industry. It is one of the largest industries in the world. It is also extremely damaging. It contributes about 10% to the world's pollution. Contributes more than international aviation to things like CO2, and it's accelerating at a frightening pace. There is much more garments being being put into landfill than they are actually being worn. And it's also heavily gendered. So there is an estimated 60 to 80 million workers globally. The fact that this is an estimate already tells you that the supply chains are very opaque, not very transparent, but we do know that, this is the best estimate that most people come up with. Most of them are women, up to 3/4 or 80% are women, mostly in the global South, in Asia, in Latin America, and in also increasingly in Eastern Europe again. It is highly profitable. but it pays poverty wages, but it is still extremely profitable, even within this global pandemic. So when the pandemic hit, it hit hard. We internally describe it as the COVID catastrophe. Because what happened? Garment brands have all the power in this industry. The suppliers, the factories have no power, and the workers don't have any power whatsoever. So the first thing that the big garment brands did was basically cut their orders. And that means a wage loss that we calculated for garment workers in the first 3 months alone was about $6 billion US. And remember, these people have very, very little salary to start with. But also other problems really pop up. For instance, in Sri Lanka, 50% of all recorded COVID cases take place in garment factories because they are crowded, they are not well ventilated, and people were forced to show up to work. We've also seen a lot of union busting under the cover of COVID, where factories use this situation to basically sack people that try to form a union. And 77% of the workers in our most recent report from 2 weeks ago report that they are actually hungry now. And I mean really hungry. That means eating rice 2 times a day with nothing, no vegetables, and let alone any protein. And 75% of them are currently in debt to keep themselves alive. So that's why we started this Pay Up campaign, because, well, what the big garment brands did, they immediately started canceling the orders, even the orders that they were already ready and were waiting to be shipped out. So immediately they canceled about 40 billion US dollars in cancellations. So we started campaigning together with our partners, and up to date, we have 16 billion recouped, where the brands finally gave in and started and agreed to pay for the orders that they had already outstanding, which is not a bad not a bad going for a bunch of activists. But as you can see, we're still way short. Actually, we've recouped a little bit more, because this morning just the news came in that Amazon and IKEA have finally caved in and are paying up. So we're happy about that, but there's still a lot of work remains to be done. And then, yeah, we had to align our response. As said, we're 300 organizations spread all over the globe, and getting all of them aligned and doing finding strategies that work for all of us is really, really, really tough. Especially if in a situation where there are different rules on staying at home orders. Staying at home orders work in Europe if you don't have a home to stay in. As some of our southern partners, that doesn't work at all. But we all flocked to our intranets. The number of active internet users was up by 250%. Before, some people were not that active, especially from the global south. But now we are. We do a lot of evidence gathering, which is also, we need to get the evidence out of countries in a safe way. We need to do a lot of strategizing, and we need to prep our campaigns to take on these multi-billion-dollar brands. So what have been our main focus? Well, first of all is our website, our public-facing website, and our blog. Back in March, we started, we immediately saw rising visitor numbers, and we started a live blog. The live blog has become one of our main tools of information dispersal, and it's intensively read by both the garment industry and by the press. We updated 3 times daily. Before we never did that. We were, a mundane NGO, and we did a couple of updates a week. And now we had to do it 3 times a day because so much information was coming in that needed to be brought out to light. And we immediately needed to build some campaign subsites. So that, also had to take place. And we had a lot of new editors. We normally work with a limited number of editors, but we had to get more people in. And they are spread all over the globe. They are from Hong Kong, they are from Mexico, they are from Portugal. People that just help us to keep those updates going. So we had new editors. We had absolutely no time for onboarding. I gave them all about a 20 minutes introduction and was like, okay, here's our front page, have fun with it, which was scary. Also because these people have various skill levels. Some of them are quite digitally savvy, others, well, let's say, are not. And so that's, that poses a challenge, and mistakes happen. But we have to keep going. Time waits for no one. But there is one thing that I do wish that we could revisit once again. Back in the days of Plone 3, we had undo. Nowadays, that's hidden in the ZMI. I've spent more time in the ZMI than I did in the past 5 years to undo some of the mistakes that some of the editors did, like throwing away an entire folder structure with 20,000 content items in them. It's all recoverable, but it would be so much nicer, and it would also give those editors much more confidence if we have a big fat undo button there again. That would be awesome. So that's my plea for, to have that unbutton again. Next up, what do you do if you have a live blog that needs to transmit lots of information? Some of the information comes directly from us as text, or email comes in so we can put it on the website, but some is also from Twitter, from YouTube, from QQ, from various other social media. You use page composition. So we did. We're using Castle CMS that has up till now the best mosaic experience that you can find to build those composite pages, which was extremely useful for the live blog. But as you do, once you have a tool, you abuse it. So as our live blog grew longer and longer, we had to split it out in months. But it basically means you get up to 100 tiles per page. We even had months where we had like 500 tiles on a single page. And that poses some questions because it can take up to a minute before the whole damn thing has loaded when you press the edit button, before you can actually start editing. And you need to convey that to all those editors. And then, yes, we started, of course, to embed all the things, because soon you find out that simply having just the normal page with a few YouTubes is not enough anymore, or a few Twitter feeds. We needed to connect all our stuff together, and really, really quick. And everything connects to everything. So just to give you an idea of what we're using and what we had to basically stitch together really, really, really fast. Of course, Plone. We start with Plone. Let me see if that's, oh, that works better probably. Social media. As you do, as we are a worldwide organization, we have a lot more social media than the ones you probably have heard about. In Asia, they tend to use quite some others. We had to stick in Airtable. because we had to have an Airtable for various reasons. We had to have large databases that we could then also show and search live on the website. We use Flourish to make pretty graphs of those large databases, and they have to be embedded. We had to connect our intranet to OnlyOffice, because one of the things that you really want to have is have simultaneous editing. And most people use Google Docs. That is not a good idea if you're working in Myanmar or China or other places where the government has less than friendly intentions, and you also want to keep your data slightly to yourself. So OnlyOffice is a fantastic project that sort of mimics that, that functionality. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. But yeah, you do want to store stuff, so we had to connect it to our Plone site. We're using Civi CRM, which is a CRM system that keeps all our information about all of our friends, all of our enemies, all of our lobby targets, all of the parliamentarians, basically everybody that we interact with. That needs to be stored somewhere as well. So that is in Civi CRM, and that also needed connecting. We use various other things such as resource space, which is a place to store all your digital assets like pictures, videos, because we get hundreds of pictures a day in, and you need to tag them all. You need to make them available to Reuters and other news media. So you use resource space. We use Yumpu, which creates interactive, sort of like a newspaper. That needs to be embedded. And we're using Big Blue Button, which is sort of like Jitsi. It's video conferencing, but then on your own server, again, because for some conversations, we simply do not rely on Zoom, because we work in high-risk areas where we really need to know that everything that we say will stay on our servers and not on somebody else's server. And we're using basically quite a lot. Why can't I see this? Oh yeah, Nextcloud is of course also one of our favorites that we're using to store other kinds of Office documents where Plone is not the right solution, because you also want calendars, you want lots of other things. Let's get back to discussions about Plone. One of the things we found about is the age-old discussion about should content items be folderish or not. As said, we're using Castle CMS, which is quite opinionated about that. It's opinionated about a lot of things in a good way, in my sense. For instance, each page is a mosaic page, but also all content is folderish. There's no question. They made that choice. And we found out, especially the new editors, they get that directly. It's like you don't need to explain it to people. They were like, yeah, of course it's folderish. Yeah, what are you talking about? So that was a good choice. But folders in and of themselves are still useful. They are useful as a mental model, just to put things in right boxes. We like to put things in boxes. Cats like to sit in boxes, and people like to put things in boxes. So folders still have a use, even if everything is folderish. And what we learned is that the biggest advantage that you gain by having everything folderish, but also folders, is actually, we've had this whole discussion backwards all the time. The biggest win is that folders are page-ish. That means you put a folder somewhere, but the folder can have content, rich HTML, listings, searches, blocks, everything. So you get rid of this whole default view index HTML kind of thing. It's just on the folder. Some other learnings, what you find when you work globally. Internationalization. PDF generation sucks. it works quite well for English, Dutch, a variety of other languages, but it doesn't quite work that well for a lot of other languages that we also need. The PDF generation from Nepali, for instance, always fails. PDF generation from Kannada always fails. And you might say, oh, Kannada, that's a weird language. Yeah, it's only one of the languages in India, and it's only 57 million people that speak it. But there happens to be a lot of garment factories there, and 57 million people is more people that speak Dutch. So we needed to provide translations in Kannada, and the PDF never comes out correctly. Fact of life. Colors. Colors are culturally specific. So you make green buttons for good, red buttons for bad, and nope, that doesn't work worldwide. Icons, exactly the same. We devise nice icons, and they make absolutely no sense in a different cultural context. So you have to really be careful about how you do that there. Another thing, not all people have last names. There are 20 million people in Indonesia that only have a first name. And I ask like, oh, can I see your passport? Yeah, they only have a first name. That's official. Binary genders, that also doesn't work. There are quite a number of countries that allow for third, fourth, or even fifth genders, also legally. So you need to make sure that your systems work for that.
Pain cry, the language is a virus. Language, it's a virus.
That was Laurie Anderson. If you work internationally, you quickly learn that language indeed is a virus. So what were our main stumbling blocks? Mobile first. It's a lie. It's fake news, people. We all are always told that you should design mobile first. Well, we asked our designers to do mobile first, and they did. But really, have those people actually tried to work their own applications on an $80 tablet in a tropical sun? Because then that is mobile first. If it works on your $1,000 iPhone in perfect conditions with perfect Wi-Fi in a Western country, great, but that's not mobile first. Mobile first means go where the users are. And my users are on an $80 tablet in the tropical sun. And then you need better things than dark gray text on a light gray background because it's completely unreadable. We need secure alternatives for G Suite, Zoom, etc. And as said, Big Blue Button is great, Only Office is great, but they could very well be improved. And one of the things, I cannot simply explain the difference between a Word file on an intranet and a page. People just don't get it. For them, that they're the same. They're exactly the same. You cannot explain the concept to somebody who has never worked a computer before why one thing is something different than the other. And that's not their fault, that's our fault for not making that easier. But overall, I do want to say thank you to Plone, because in the end, it has been a lifesaver for us. 300 organizations up against an overwhelming adversary in the form of this virus, but mostly also in the form of really difficult conditions. Plone has held up to a lot of stress, a lot of difficulty, a lot of internet dropouts. It creaked sometimes, and that drove us slightly mad, but somehow it works. We have managed to connect our network of activists globally. As good as bad as it goes, you have some good days and some bad days, but overall, it works. We overcame all the barriers of distance, language, culture, gender, you name it, and kept on working. We still gather evidence from risky areas, bringing them out of the country, making sure it's end-to-end encrypted. We can devise strategies. And basically, Clean Clothes, we're taking on a multi-billion-dollar industry who are vastly are superior in terms of numbers of money that they have, of lawyers that they can throw at us. But we are basically booking campaign wins. We're garnering recognition. We're really sitting at the table. They're listening to us. And most of all, our network has remained operational and we're more determined than ever. So I would say that is a big win for our use of Plone. It has been battle tested. So yeah, while running on Plone and this whole array of other free software, um, you can actually work quite effectively. So basically, I want to tell people also at this conference, know that we're putting your work to good use. There are others who are also doing. I recommend that you look at the presentation that Karil Yusuf gave yesterday about using Plone as an anti-corruption tool. That was also quite impressive. So, but overall, I would say a big thank you to everybody that has helped to develop Plone, that still keeps developing Plone. Know that we're using it. We've hardly ever paid you, but we do put it to good use. So all I can say is keep up the good fight. We're doing our bit, and thank you all very much. And